Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Demon Reads Comics. Today, we're going to do a review of Tales from the Crypt, Volume 3, trade paperback. They do make hardcovers of this, but they're kind of rare to find and expensive when you find them. I think this one, when I was looking at them, was like $150 for this. I don't know. The hardcovers just because they came out first and they're kind of rare to find. They did start coming out with trade paperbacks, and the trade paperbacks are like 15, $20. So I ended up going with the trade paperbacks. But again, this is Tales from the Crypt, EC Archives, Tales from the Crypt, Volume 3, trade paperback, published by Dark Horse Books. And it does have glued binding, 216 pages, and collects issues 29 through 34. This one was kind of an interesting one that I didn't like, and now when I flip through the pages, I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. For those of you that don't know, EC Archives, or I'm sorry, EC stands for Entertainment Comics, and entertaining comic, entertaining comic. There we go. Sorry, I was having a hard time with that. But yeah, this is volume 3. There's 2 other volumes still to go. I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of getting burned out a little bit with these short stories. Think of it this way: there's 5 volumes per it, 5 times 6, because there's 6 issues per volume. So that's already 30 issues that you're reading, and each issue has 4 stories, short stories in it. So 4 times 30, what's 4 times 3 is 120. So there's 120 short stories that you're going to be reading through, and you don't really like develop any kind of connection to any of the stories. You just read the stories and move on. So they're not really slow burn reads. They kind of are, actually, but at the same time, they're just kind of short stories that you read and you're kind of like, read it, next. Like they're nice. They're nice to look at the art. They're nice to look at the story. Read the story, but after a while, they start kind of getting boring. And even at that, like, maybe the story isn't boring, but because you already know they're just short stories, you're kind of like, man. And so maybe that's my fault, because I decided to read them back to back, back to back, back to back. And so maybe when you read them like volume 1, read something else, volume 2. Don't read them back to back, because when you do that, they really get, boring after a while. And then you shouldn't do that. Like, if it was up to me, I'd probably sit it down after this one, read something else, and then go back and do volumes 4 and 5. But because I'm doing this channel and I'm doing reviews, I kind of have to go through them. So I'm not enjoying the last parts of them as much as I should, or I want to. But I'm enjoying the stories still. I enjoyed the stories. There's one story in here that was kind of ridiculous to me. Actually, some of them were really ridiculous to me, like giant spiders that can eat humans, a zombie elephant. I'm kind of like, what the heck? So yeah, they're kind of getting out there, in the sense of, what the heck? What am I reading? The first ones were great. The stories were, cool, with, maybe some zombies here, some, people coming back to life, some ghosts, things like that. But the zombie elephants, human sized, like, not human sized, but spiders that are able to eat humans. Like, come on. There's a story in here with the ghost that you never see. Obviously, you can't see ghosts because they're ghosts, right? But there's a story in here which I'll hopefully I can pass by it and talk about it a little bit, where this kid is being, like, he hears voices and it's an actual ghost, and that ghost actually does stuff, but you never see the ghost actually. So, and it, I know it's a ghost, but more often than not, when there's a story being told in here, you see the monster in some way, shape, or form, right? So that's what I'm not liking about it. Um, but anyway, let's go ahead and crack this open and talk about some of the stories. I'm going to kind of flip through, because I actually did this before. I recorded it and my mic wasn't turned on, which was my fault. I know it's turned on now. So I get to re-record it, which is great, because the first video, after everything was put together, said and done, it was almost 40 minutes long. I don't want it to be that long. So I might skip through some stories. I might talk about some of them. But let's go ahead and open this and talk about some of the stories that's contained in here. Alrighty, guys. So let's go ahead and crack this open. Talk about some of the stories in here and talk about who wrote it and things like that. I should have said that earlier when I was kind of going over the book. But anyway, the first page, the end page, is always this little arm coming out. It's in black and white because this comic came out. Each issue came out in black and white. Obviously, now that they collected it in volumes and hardcover and trade paperback, they put color, which that's how I read them. So I can't kind of compare to them. But anyway, so each issue, it's kind of weird because it's called Tales from the Crypt. So you would think that the Crypt Keeper is the only one that's telling the stories, but in each issue of the 6 issues this contains, it's always a story by the first one's always by the Crypt Keeper, and then it kind of goes back and forth between the Old Witch and the Vault Keeper, and then it always ends either with the Crypt Keeper again or one of these. It's kind of weird. You would think that all the stories are from the Crypt Keeper. So, like the Old Witch has her own magazine, the Haunted Fear. So, or her own comics, the Haunted Fear. So why wouldn't she tell her stories there? And the Vault Keeper has his own, the Vault of Horror. So why? I don't understand why they did it that way, but it is what it is. So, like I said, 216 pages, collects issues 29 through 34, volume 3, forwarded by Bob Overstreet. And here is the table of contents. As you can see here, a lot of people worked on it, like Johnny Craig, Marie Severin, Bill Gaines, Al Feldstein, Jack Davis, Jack Kamen. I'll kind of stop right here so you guys can look at it. That's while all these people I was just talking about, there is one thing that I do want to say. There's a story in here about the people that worked on it, like Al Feldstein. I believe Jack Davis and Jack Kamen are actually in the story in here, which I did not like, but I think they were forced to put it in there. Here's some other people that worked on it, like George Evans, Jerry DeFusio. Let's see. What's funny about some of these stories, like this one, Castaway, it's by unknown, which is weird, but kind of stopping there so you guys can pause it and look at it. But here's the introduction by Grant Geisman, and then there's a forward by Robert M. Overstreet. So here's the first issue, Tales from the Crypt, number 29. Let's see, this first one, I actually like this first story. There's a little boy, he has a stepdad married to the mother. Every single time he gets in trouble, the stepdad always locks him in the closet. He's a very aggressive, abusive stepdad, which kind of, I like the story because I have a stepdad, so my stepdad's not like that, but I liked it because of that. Like, what if my stepdad was like this? Anyway, the little kid likes being put into the closet because he can talk to his imaginary friend, which turns out not to be an imaginary friend. It actually turns out to be a ghost. And what's weird about it is you never see the ghost, and nobody thinks it's real except the boy. So one day the dad hurts the boy physically, and the ghost takes revenge on the dad and throws him in a meat grinder because the dad owns a butcher shop. So it was a good story, actually. I really enjoyed that story. Aside from never being able to see the ghost, or if it was real or not, or if it was just a boy that did it himself. That's what I kind of like about these stories. It keeps you thinking, and I like that. Was it the boy? Was it really a ghost? But yeah, it was an interesting story. This next one, The Rotten Trip, I wasn't a big fan of it. So I'm not gonna talk about it too much, but it's about this guy that's trying to leave. He goes and asks for help from some guy that he did really dirty, really, really dirty. The guy agreed. He was like, "Yeah, it was a long time ago. Sure, I'll help you." And the guy ends up leaving him in a leper colony, so he ends up dying. But I didn't really like that story because, like, how can you go back and ask for help to some guy that you? It's like me going to rob somebody and then turning around a couple of years later and then asking them for help. Like, come on, that makes no sense. Every single time you read an issue, um, there's always 2 stories. This middle part with the short story that you actually have to read, which I don't read, and then another one. This one was another one that I did not like because I don't know. It kind of left it open ended. Did the guy kill this person? Did the guy actually do this? But there's this couple. They move. You kind of get a background about this couple. This girl hates being in closed places, like because she has claustrophobia because she was in the cave-in. She told her husband about it. Eventually, they moved to a mining colony place, a mining place. The husband brings over an employee. The wife cheats on the husband. The wife catches him. Doesn't really say if the husband kills the employee, but right here, supposedly the guy locks her in the coffin. But at the end of it, she's not really locked in. She just gets thrown in the coffin to be taken to the hospital, but she's going crazy. So I don't know. It was a weird story. I know it has to do with claustrophobia and people like that, but I don't know, man. That one was a weird one because like you really don't know if he did it or not, and I guess it gets you thinking. A sucker for a spider. This one was an interesting one, for people that are scared of spiders. But at the end of it, I was just like, okay. So the thing is, there's a boss that owns a bank and an employee. The employee comes over to talk to the boss about certain things that's going on with the company. The boss is rich, takes this employee, shows him around the mansion, takes him into a greenhouse and shows him his collection of spiders. They talk about some things a little bit about the spiders. The employee doesn't really like the spiders. Eventually, the employee comes out and says, "Hey, you know what? I know why the company is going down. You're stealing from your own company to buy these spiders, and I'm going to blackmail you. So now you have to pay me this much money." The boss doesn't like it, and he gets a black widow from his collection, puts it in the bed of the employee, kills the employee because the employee ended up spending the night. The guy leaves because he wants to, get away from everything, even though it was an accident. But he wants to leave, so by the time he comes back, it can be a few years later. But his plane goes down, and he gets eaten by a big ass spider. Like what? Like the whole story in itself was great. The detective kind of work, the whole setup was great. But the end of it with the big spider, I was just like, what? How can a big spider like that eat a whole human? And by the time they found it, like, I don't know, it was a weird story. I wasn't a big fan of it. Um, and then that's the end of the first issue. Then you got Tales from the Crypt issue 30. Again, it starts with the Crypt Keeper. This one was kind of an interesting one. The first story was an interesting one about from back in the day when they were mining coal. Not mining coal, mining gold. You got what do they call him? A prospect trying to find a good place to mine gold. He eventually finds a good place and he finds gold, but some guy takes it over, kills him, and tries to get rid of the body. And he tries to get rid of the body by burying him first. He gets undug by some wild cats. The guy gets scared because he thinks he's just dug up himself. So then he tries to um, throw him in the lake with like he wraps a shovel and some other tools on his feet so he can actually throw him in the lake and he doesn't come up. Eventually, he comes back up, and it's just because um, there's a stream that goes into a lake. So because he threw him right there, that's how he got untied. And he's been down there for so long that he gets bloated. And when he comes back up, the other guy gets all scared and he's like, you know what? If you're not gonna die this way, well, I'm gonna set you on fire. Maybe you do, go that way. Well, because he was so bloated and had so much air in his body, he blew up when he was on fire and ended up killing both of them. It was an interesting story, but like the guy was never alive. Although when you were reading it, it was being told by the person that got shot, the prospector that got shot. So that's why I didn't like it because he's already dead. So how can he tell the story? But I don't really dig too much into it. The Vault of Horror, told by the Vault Keeper, a Hollywood ending, was a very interesting story, although the ending still didn't make sense to me. I guess I'm reading too much into the stories, but there's this Hollywood producer. He's trying to get a story about the people that live in Eskimo. Not live in Eskimo. He's trying to get a story about the Eskimo people. So he goes to a remote place that's very cold. He ends up meeting a girl there. The girl has no memory of a lot of things because she lost her memory, but her doctor, now that she calls daddy, which is kind of weird, um, has been living here this whole time for 6 years. This guy ends up falling in love with her. They fall in love with each other. He asked her to come back with him to Hollywood to make her a star. And the doctor doesn't want that. But eventually the girl leaves. They both end up leaving and going to Hollywood. Certain things start happening to her. The doctor eventually ends up finding the girl and the guy and explains to them that she had died 6 years ago. He brought her back, and she has to be living in that cold place in order to be preserved and to be human-like. Because if she's in a warmer place, she's going to decompose, which ends up happening. And that's the end of the story. So the scientific part about bringing her back was kind of like the but the story in itself was actually pretty interesting. So I like that story. It was pretty cool. There you go. You go with another short story. This is the story I was telling you about. That oh no, I'm sorry. That was the one with the ghost. But this is another interesting story that has to do with the little kid. he's hearing voices as well. And we don't know if it's actually him, if it's the ghost telling him or it's just voices in his head. Long story short, it has to do with him and his aunt. And I wasn't the biggest fan of this story, but the aunt gets crushed by 4 tons of coal. Um, where they live, they have a coal bin. It starts getting empty. The aunt doesn't want the boy to go down there and get coal for his little games, so she ends up getting a locksmith. Before before she actually, she calls up the coal company, or she calls the coal company, but before they come, she goes down there to open a window to make sure that the coal company can just, put everything down there. She gets locked in there, and because the boy promised that he wouldn't do what the voices in his head was telling him, doesn't listen to the aunt, so she gets crushed by 4 tons of coal. It was an interesting story, and the only reason I liked it because it was a story about a little boy. They're all about adults and stuff like that. But when you're reading a story like this, and us as kids, as teenagers, as adults, you don't always just want to read stuff about adults. Like if there's a teenager reading this, you want to see some stuff in here about teenagers because then you're like, oh, I don't have to worry about this until I'm older, right? It's supposed to scare everybody, the whole audience. So yeah, this was an interesting story. I actually enjoyed it a lot. Anyway, the next one, Morning Ambrose, was an interesting story about a cannibal that ate his own family. That he eventually gets caught and things like that. It was an interesting story, but it was weird because it was the first time I read a story about a cannibal. And it was an interesting story because the way he gets caught, the detective work that the police do, that's why I liked it. Not the whole cannibal part at the end, but he does get caught eventually. It was an interesting story. Not the best though. Tales from the Crypt, issue 31. This one was kind of an interesting issue, and I'll tell you guys why when I get to it. I think it's this one, Survival of Death or Death. This was an interesting story in the sense that it made you think a lot. As us as humans, there's this group. There's these two guys that are best friends. They're civilized, as they say. They're on a freightliner, so they're bored. They eventually go to the captain and ask them to if he can build a barrel with water to trap mice in because there's a lot of mice on the liners. But one of them suggests that they put a pole in here in the thing so that way a mouse can find its way up there, and if another mouse goes into it, they can fight survival of the fittest type of thing. And it's cruel, but they make it into a game, and the captain still does it even though he doesn't like it. Well, the story goes on, and the freightliner goes down. They have to abandon ship. They get on one of the lifeboats because the other ones got wrecked, as you can see here. And survival of the fittest to the civilized people, and well, they both end up dying. So karma came around and kind of bit them both in the butt. That's why I like this story. It's about us as humans, karma, and things like that. That's why it was such a great story to me. One of the good ones in this issue so far, or in this volume so far. Let's see, The Thing in the Glades, told by the Vault Keeper. This one was an interesting one. It really reminded me of, if you guys ever read the story and or seen the movie of Mice and Men, the big, tall, strong guy Lenny. He's a big, strong guy, but he has the mind of a child. And when he plays with stuff, he always kills it because he's so strong. Well, that's what this story is about. Like, this guy has a son. He's deformed. He's strong. But he has a mind of a child. So when he plays with stuff, he ends up killing it. So this sheriff and his deputy go and try to find him and see what's going on. It's a very interesting story. I liked it. The detective, or I'm sorry, not the detective, the sheriff eventually ends up taking care of that deformed child, which is like a half looking thing, man thing. I don't know, it was a weird one. In quicksand. Oh, there you go. There's a good picture of it. I like this story because it really reminded me of Mice and Men. And yeah, it was just awesome. It was a great story. Let's see here. This is one of them that I did not like. As I told you before in the beginning, the people that worked on this is a story about them. This is a story about Jack Kamen, Al Feldstein. I think it was Bill actually. Let me see if it says their names here. Yeah, Bill. So Bill, give me a second. Bill Gaines, yeah. So it's a story about Bill Gaines, Jack Kamen, and Al Feldstein. It's about Al Feldstein and Bill Gaines trying to recruit Jack Kamen, but they don't like Jack Kamen's work because he's all into romance. They want him to do horror stuff. He's not good at it. Eventually, Jack Kamen goes home. He does a lot of work. He ends up having a dream, and where he becomes a werewolf and kills his wife and kid, and that's how he becomes the horror person that he is now. I don't like it because it's a story about them that it feels like it was forced for them to put it in here. And even at the end, so at the end of every story, the crypt keeper, here's a crypt keeper, the vault keeper, or the old witch talk little things like they kind of tell you about the story. They're talking to you, the reader, and they actually talk about how they hated that they had to put this in here. They call them idiots. But it was a good one. This is another story, Buried Treasure, that I wasn't the biggest fan of. This guy is pretty much like an emperor of some place. He's very rude and despises the peasants. One day, the peasants kind of, get a plan to go and steal their that the emperor's money because the emperor's, I guess, taxing them even more. The story on why he's doing it is even ridiculous. But they go and try to rob him. The guy gets caught, and one of the guys, this guy, goes up and puts a knife up to the emperor's neck. The guards back up. The emperor is wearing all the jewelry that the guy was trying to steal, and eventually that guy ends up making one of the peasants makes or ends up. How do I? The one of the peasants that went up on stage with the knife ends up making the emperor swallow all the jewels and then throws them into the crowd and they ripped into shreds. It was a weird story, but I mean, I guess that's how they did it back in the day. Tales from the Crypt, issue 32 was an interesting one, and it's actually a good one because when I get to it, I'll show you guys why. The first one, Taint the Meat, It's the Humanity, was a weird story because there's this butcher, but it was during World War II, so I guess you had to have points, red points, some sort of points to sell meat or buy meat. I don't know. I guess they were rationing for the war. I don't know. Long story short, there's this butcher. He starts selling to the black market the actual meat, and he starts giving regular customers horse meat and tainted meat. Eventually, his people start getting sick, including his son, and his wife gets so mad that the son dies and goes after the butcher, kills the butcher, and sells his body as meat. See, he's right here. It was a weird story. I wasn't a big fan of it, but yeah. Roped in? This is another one that I wasn't a big fan of because it had to do with the big spider at the end. But there's this company that a construction company that with four people, three of the guys, three men, there's four men. Three of them kind of were making it look like this other guy was using cheap material, but the other three guys were getting the profit off of it. And after that, one of the guys goes to jail, and the other three get a big they get like a big project in Bolivia. They start flying over there, and their plane ends up going down, and they get eaten by spiders. So it was kind of like a karma thing with tangle webs and things like that. I just wasn't a big fan because of the big spider at the end. I don't know. I get some of it's interesting, but it kind of makes you think. But some of it's just kind of. This was an interesting story, but at the same time, it wasn't. Two gamblers, very lucky gamblers, to the point where like they're cheating death. They hate each other, so they start playing card games, and it gets to a point where the first card game didn't work, so they play Russian roulette. 6 bullets. They take turns. Nothing happens. They cheat death. Then they start playing a game called not strip poker but chop poker, where instead of taking clothes off, every single time you lose a hand of poker, you have to chop off a limb. And they couldn't finish the game because they ended up chopping off all their limbs. It was a weird story. Yeah. This next one was a weird one. Squash Anyone? A husband and a wife are at a circus. They're not at a circus. They're in the circus, and they have the act is about an elephant. The wife goes under one of the elephant's foot, and it's like it gets dangerously close, but it's well trained, and that's their act. But the husband's cheating on this girl, but she won't give him a divorce. So what happens is the other girl and the husband ends up making it look like an accident that the elephant came down and stomped her face. That's what ends up happening. The circus people know the security at the circus come and shoot the elephant, and they kill the elephant. So now the wife and the elephant are dead. Eventually, the guy ends up being remarried to that one girl, gets a new elephant. But before they go, when they go back after a year later, when they go back to that place that happened, the zombie elephant comes back. Oh, that's what I was telling you guys about. I was not a big fan of that. It made oh god, really a zombie elephant. Maybe the girl coming back, but the zombie elephant, nah, whatever. Oh, it wasn't. Yeah, okay. So issue 33 was the one that I liked the most because there's another kind of not really a circus, but it's like a sideshow where this guy has a doctor that's showing a mummified woman, first of its kind. Her name is Myrna, doing so well at the attraction that one of the guy, a different guy, comes up to this guy and asks if he can show his prized possession, which is a two-headed body. I guess you can say man. So at the shot show, they instead of showing just Myrna the mummy, they start showing Myrna the mummy and Enoch the two-headed man. And every once in a while, they after they take off the dressing of Myrna, Enoch and Myrna can see each other once or 5 times a day because they do the sideshow 5 times a day. What didn't really make sense is they came to life. Actually, they were supposed to be dead. They came to life, and they ended up having a child, and that child is the backstory of the Crypt Keeper. So that's why I like that story. And like I said, these stories are ridiculous. You're not really meant to like enjoy them so much to the point where you think about them so much. You're just meant to enjoy the story, read them, and then move on. So that's the one I really wanted to catch, actually. The rest of them, I'm just going to kind of flip through it so you guys can see the art. The art's very beautiful. I really love the art. There's a lot of reading to be done, though, as you guys can see here. A lot of reading. So, yeah, I enjoyed these stories. Don't get me wrong, but the zombie elephant. But they're kind of getting not really boring, but repetitive. I guess you can say that's the word I'm looking for. They're getting really repetitive in the sense of you kind of know what's going to happen. It's just, I guess the only difference is the monster that comes up, whether it be a zombie, whether it be a ghoul, a demented looking deformed creature. It's just, it's getting really repetitive for me. And like I said, for those of you that really want to read this, I suggest you read volume 1, set it to the side, read something else, and then read volume 2, set it to the side. Don't read it all back to back because it does get really, really repetitive, and it starts getting kind of boring. And that kind of sucks because I started reading this and I was enjoying it to the max. I'm still enjoying it, but now I'm just kind of waiting for it to end. And I still have 2 more volumes to go. But I do love this art. It's just there's a lot of reading to it, but I like the reading to it because it gives a lot of backstory, which is great because each issue is only, I'm sorry, not each issue, each story is only about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to 7 pages long. So I get why they have to put a lot of reading like this. The blue stuff up here is like the context, the background they're giving you. So I appreciate they give you that. For it being 7 pages, I get it. Towards the back, there's really nothing. It ends right here, and then they kind of solicit, their other books and more stories, and then it ends. So that's it for the stories in here. Like I said, I skipped over a lot of them. I kind of even got some stories and didn't really talk about them in specific. A lot more things happened in the stories than I talked about. I just didn't want to give too much away. But very interesting story still. Like I said, I wasn't a big fan of the one where the creators made their own stories and put it in here. I love the story about the backstory about the Crypt Keeper. That was awesome. So anyway, guys, let's go ahead and do the rating and see what you guys think, and go from there. Alrighty, guys. So just to do a quick recap before we do the rating, this is Tales from the Crypt Volume 3 trade paperback. It does have glued binding for it being a trade paperback. I haven't came across a trade paperback that has sewn binding, but I have came across a hardcover that has glued binding, which most of them have sewn binding, but I have came across 1, 2, maybe 3 hardcovers that have glued binding. So that's a new one. But yeah, like I said, Tales from the Crypt Volume 3, published by Dark Horse Books. It being trade paperback, has glued binding. 216 pages and collects issues 29 through 34. Now, as a rating, what do I want to give this as a rating? I think I'm going to stick to a solid 3, even though they're getting kind of repetitive and a little bit boring at times. I'm still going to give it a 3. I enjoyed the stories. Some of them are kind of ridiculous, like the big spiders, the zombie elephant. Like, come on! But I enjoyed the stories still. I'm enjoying them to the point where I guess not really to the point, but I'm enjoying them because I like to see where horror comics and comics in general came from. This is from like the 1950s, 60s, and I like that. So I like to see where graphic novels slash comics come from and all the art that was put into them. So I'm really enjoying that still. Aside from that, I enjoy the art. I really do. I know they're supposed to be in black and white, and I got them in color. Still, I can't, because I've never read them in black and white. I'm enjoying them in the color that they come, or in the color format that it came in, and so that's why I'm giving it a 3. Some of the stories, like I said, are kind of hit and miss, and I do highly recommend that you guys pick these up and not read them back to back, back to back. Like I said before, read volume 1, set it to the side, read something else, maybe something else after that, and then read volume 2. Don't read them back to back because 120 short stories does start getting really repetitive, boring, and becomes a slow burn read after a while. Like at first, you're like into it, you're reading them, you're like, oh my god, what's next? It's getting to the point where now volume 3, 4, when I start reading it, I don't even look forward to it anymore. I'm kind of like, "Oh, let's go ahead and do this." So anyway, guys, that's what I'm giving this rating. I think I'm still sticking to a solid 3 of this. I think I'm gonna give a solid 3 to the other ones. I'm gonna keep these for sure because they might be hard to come around, like the Vault of Horror ish volume 2 and volume 3 are hard to find. So I know these are going to be hard to come around. So I'm going to keep these. I might get rid of them once I do another reread, if I do another reread. And I might just get rid of them, maybe just to make room. But for now, I'm definitely keeping them. Um, so yeah, I'm giving this a 3, a solid 3. I do highly recommend you guys read this. After this, we're gonna be reading after this, we're gonna finish up volume 4 and volume 5, and then we're gonna be reading Ghost World, and then Blankets, and then we're gonna get into Watchmen. And after Watchmen, we're gonna be doing The Question by DC. So anyway, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the review. If you guys did, please leave a like. I really appreciate that. In the comments down below, let me know if you guys enjoyed the Tales from the Crypt, the Haunt of Fear series, or the Vault of Horror series more. Like, which one you guys enjoyed more? Was it or are they all the same? Like, I don't understand why the Crypt Keeper. I don't understand why the Tales from the Crypt ish volumes are supposed to be from the Crypt Keeper, but we get stories from the Old Witch and the Vault Keeper when they have their own volumes and series. So if they did that with the other ones as well, there's no reason why they separated Tales from the Crypt, the Haunt of Fear and the Vault of Horror. Like, there's no reason they should have done it. They should have just kept it all one series and put them all in one. So anyway, guys, if you guys have recommendations, let me know in the comments down below. I'm not really picking up recommendations to the point where I'm picking up books, but if it's something that I'm really, really interested in, I might look into it more. So leave some recommendations down in the comments down below. That being said, guys, if you guys haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel. It really helps build my channel up. Shout out to everybody that's been watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing on my videos. It really helps build my videos out, or build my channel up. I know I'm doing this for me, and I really appreciate everybody that just takes time to watch my videos. I did get constructive criticism by somebody to where the way I'm recording it now, it's a little bit different. That way, when you guys put your phones to landscape, you guys can actually see the video. It's not so small. So I'm working on that. The microphone I'm working on. So give me a little bit. I'm still working on it to get a bigger or a better picture quality, from the mic. So because I haven't really had anybody, reach out and be like, "Oh, this is what's wrong. You should work on this." So now that I have, I'm working on it. So I appreciate that. Shout out to as of right now, 21 subscribers. Yeah, me, right? I know it's not a lot, guys, but this is my third channel on YouTube, and I've never even hit double digits on my other two. So I am very excited that I hit double digits, and not only did I hit double digits, I hit double digits, means I'm already in the 20s. Um, I don't expect it to go up to the hundreds or thousands, but if it does, great. Even if YouTube reaches out and they want to, make me a partner, I might turn it down because I hate going into videos and having to watch people talk about this is sponsored by this, or so many ads. That kind of stuff pisses me off so much. So yeah, I don't know if I might do that or not, and we'll see what happens. The money won't hurt, but still, I'm not. That's not what I'm looking for. I want these videos for me so I can look back and see what I've read, see what the stories were about, and so you guys can appreciate the videos and see if you guys want to pick them up or not. So anyway, guys, all that being said, take care, stay healthy, and we'll see you guys on the next one.